Dubai. A desert city sculpted into glass and steel, where towers kiss the clouds and fortunes shift with a single signature. The streets glow with imported luxury, Bentleys weaving between Rolls-Royces, chandeliers hanging in restaurants where a single meal costs more than a worker's monthly wage. This is a place where power is displayed in silence, where wealth is a language only the few can speak. Inside one of those towers, a man named Khalid sits at the head of a table longer than most apartments. He does not raise his voice, he doesn't need to. A glance, a pause, a single word from him, and billion-dollar deals move like pieces on a chessboard. His empire stretches across oil, shipping, real estate, and technology. He is feared by rivals, respected by politicians, envied by friends. But respect and fear are not love. Envy is not trust. When the meetings end and the applause fades, Khalid returns to a penthouse of cold marble and quiet echoes. The city skyline blazes outside his window, but inside, silence reigns. There are no footsteps, no laughter, no waiting arms. His meals arrive on silver trays, untouched by the hands of anyone who cares for him. His phone vibrates with messages he ignores, reminders he dismisses. He has built a kingdom so high that no one can reach him, and in that height, he has made himself untouchable. Yet whispers follow him. The betrayal of a business partner he once trusted. A love he once lost to pride. A scar hidden beneath his perfect suit. His empire is immaculate on the outside, but those who know the man behind the mask call him what he fears most, lonely. And tonight, as the city of Dubai hums beneath the desert stars, Khalid gazes across the skyline and feels the weight of everything money cannot buy. The next morning, the mask returns. His world moves with ruthless precision, private elevators, security details, assistants who know not to look him in the eye unless spoken to. In the boardroom, Khalid is flawless. Graphs climb because of his decisions. Rivals fall because of his silence. Contracts worth nations hinge on his nod. He is a man who carries empires in the palm of his hand. But beneath the sharp lines of his tailored suit, a different truth beats. Each smile he offers a foreign investor is calculated, every handshake with a government official a performance. He has trained himself to live like a fortress, armored against betrayal, immune to attachment. And still, the cracks show when no one is looking. On the red carpet of Dubai's most exclusive gala, cameras flash as Khalid steps out of a black Maybach. Women in gowns glance his way, some with admiration, some with envy. Men whisper, speculating on his latest acquisition. Khalid plays his role effortlessly, the untouchable billionaire, the prize of every headline. Yet behind the eyes that charm and intimidate, lies a fatigue no camera could capture. Back at his office, numbers soar on glowing screens. Oil shipments cross oceans under his flag. Properties rise from sand with his name on the blueprints. His empire thrives, but his heart remains a barren desert. For years, this has been his rhythm, dominance without intimacy, control without closeness. Every victory only deepens the hollow silence that waits for him at night. And though no one dares to say it aloud, the truth lingers in the spaces between his deals and his empty dinners. Khalid has everything, yet he has nothing. And it is on one of those nights, when the silence of his penthouse feels heavier than the city that surrounds it, that his phone rings. Not the polished calls of investors or the hollow praise of business partners, this call carries a voice from the past. It is a childhood friend, someone untouched by his empire, someone who still calls him Khalid without titles or fear. The friend speaks quickly, almost hesitantly, about a charity auction being held in the city. An event to raise money for struggling families, single mothers, children whose futures hang in the balance. He insists Khalid should come, not as the billionaire, not as the headline, but simply as a man who once knew how to care. Khalid listens in silence. Charity events are nothing new, his assistant attends dozens in his name each year. But this request feels different. Perhaps it is the sincerity in his friend's voice, or the rare moment of someone asking without expectation of gain. Against his own instinct, Khalid agrees. The next evening, he arrives at the auction. The setting is far from the glittering halls he is used to. No chandeliers, no golden cutlery. Just modest lights strung across a hall filled with ordinary people, volunteers, parents, children. The air hums not with ambition but with hope, fragile and desperate. Khalid takes his seat, out of place in his tailored suit, but too proud to admit it. He tells himself he will stay only long enough to be seen, long enough to satisfy his friend. But as the auction begins, and faces from the crowd step forward to share their struggles, Khalid feels something he hasn't felt in years, the stirring of discomfort. Not the discomfort of a failed deal, but the discomfort of seeing lives stripped bare. Then, she walks onto the stage. A young woman, poised yet nervous, her eyes holding both strength and fatigue. A single mother, the announcer says, who has agreed to be part of the fundraiser. The crowd murmurs, sympathetic but distant. Khalid's gaze sharpens. There is something about her presence, something raw and unpolished, that silences the noise of his thoughts. And in that moment, in the unlikeliest of places, Khalid's carefully controlled world is about to crack open. The auctioneer clears his throat, announcing the next item up for bid. Not art, not jewelry, not a night in a luxury suite. Instead, it is time pledged by volunteers, everyday people offering themselves for mentorship, assistance, or support, small acts of service in exchange for donations. The young woman on stage is introduced as Amira. A single mother who has agreed, with visible reluctance, to participate. The announcer explains that the highest bidder will earn an afternoon of her time, a chance to learn her story, perhaps to help her cause. Khalid watches as whispers sweep across the room. Some scoff. Some pity. Others reach for their wallets, but half-heartedly. A few numbers are called out, small sums, polite gestures more than genuine bids. Amira's face flushes, torn between embarrassment and resolve. She lowers her gaze, preparing herself for humiliation. Then Khalid raises his hand. His voice, deep and calm, carries across the hall, $1 million. Gasps ripple through the room. Heads turn sharply in his direction. The auctioneer stumbles, certain he misheard, but Khalid's steady gaze leaves no room for doubt. 1 million, not as charity for the cause, but directed at the woman standing on stage. Amira's eyes lift, meeting his. Not gratitude. Not awe. But defiance. She does not smile, does not thank him, does not even look impressed. For the first time in his life, Khalid's wealth has failed to produce the reaction he expects. The gavel slams. The room erupts in murmurs. The deal is sealed. And yet, as Amira steps down from the stage, she does not rush to him. She does not even acknowledge him beyond that piercing look. Instead, she walks away, as though he were any other man. Khalid sits back, unsettled. In a world where money commands everything, she has just denied its power. And for the first time in years, Khalid feels something he cannot name, a spark of curiosity, sharp and undeniable. He expects Amira to seek him out after the auction. To thank him, to show even the faintest sign of obligation. That is how the world works. Money speaks, and gratitude follows. But instead, she moves through the crowded hall as though nothing had happened. She shakes the hands of volunteers, thanks strangers for their small donations, and speaks softly to a child tugging at her sleeve. When her gaze drifts across the room, it brushes past Khalid without pause. Unimpressed. Unintimidated. Unchanged. Khalid leaves the hall restless. Inside the back seat of his waiting car, the city glitters around him, but he barely notices. His driver waits for instructions, but Khalid offers none. He sits in silence, irritated that she did not react, confused that it matters. Why should it? He has bought entire companies with less effort. He has bent governments to his will. Yet a woman with nothing refuses to bend at all. That night, he pours himself a drink and stares out at the skyline. For years, his world has been predictable. Transactions, victories, losses that never truly wounded him. But Amira's indifference unsettles him in ways he cannot explain. It gnaws at him. Was it her defiance? The steadiness in her eyes? Or was it the way she carried herself, with a dignity that no amount of wealth could buy or strip away? For the first time in years, Khalid feels exposed. Seen. Not as a billionaire, not as an empire, but as a man. And though he tells himself he will forget her by morning, deep down, he knows the truth, he won't. And so, the very next week, Khalid finds himself making excuses. At first, it is subtle. A brief call to his childhood friend, casually asking how the charity's work is going. Then, an offer to inspect the community center that benefited from the auction funds. His staff is puzzled, such matters are normally beneath him, but no one dares question their employer. When Khalid steps into the modest center, he is struck by the difference. Gone are the marble floors and towering glass walls he is used to. Here, the air smells faintly of chalk and cooking spices, the walls are lined with children's drawings, and the furniture is worn from use. And yet, there is life in this place, laughter echoing through the halls, conversations unguarded, warmth in every corner. And there she is. Amira, with her sleeves rolled up, balancing a stack of books in one arm and guiding her son with the other. She doesn't flinch when she sees Khalid. No rehearsed smile, no bowing of the head. Only a raised brow and a faint sigh, as though his presence were an inconvenience rather than a privilege. "Why are you here?" she asks, voice steady. Khalid, unprepared for the bluntness, mutters something about checking on the progress. But even he hears how hollow it sounds. Over the following days, he finds more reasons to return. A donation drop-off he insists on overseeing himself. A community event he claims is good publicity. A quick stop to speak with volunteers that somehow stretches into hours. Each time, he watches her, the way she listens intently when others speak, the way she works tirelessly without seeking recognition, the way she gives her son a world of love despite having so little. In her presence, Khalid is no longer the man who silences boardrooms. He is just a man trying to understand why the walls he built so carefully begin to tremble whenever she is near. Days turn into weeks, and Khalid notices the strangest change, the things that once consumed him no longer hold the same weight. The thrill of acquisitions, the glitter of galas, the constant race to outmaneuver rivals, all of it feels oddly hollow now. Instead, he finds himself replaying conversations with Amira. Simple, ordinary exchanges that cut sharper than any boardroom argument. When he boasts about his empire, she asks, "But who does it serve, other than you?" When he mentions his luxury penthouse, she replies, "A home isn't in the walls, it's in the people inside." And when he speaks of loyalty, she quietly asks, "Then why do you look so alone?" Each question lingers long after she has walked away, echoing louder than the cheers of shareholders. One evening, he attends another business dinner. Crystal glasses, polished silverware, the finest wines. Around him, men and women flatter one another, trading jokes laced with greed. Khalid sits at the head of the table, but his mind drifts elsewhere, to the sound of children laughing in the community center, to the way Amira's son clung to her hand, to the honesty in her eyes that no one in this room could fake. The laughter at the table suddenly feels forced. The compliments sound rehearsed. He realizes, with unsettling clarity, that he has surrounded himself with people who celebrate his wealth but know nothing of his heart. For the first time in years, Khalid begins to question not just what he has built, but who he has become. And it is in those questions that something unexpected takes root. The next time he visits the community center, he notices the details he once overlooked. The way Amira kneels to tie her son's shoes, pausing to kiss his forehead. The way she laughs softly at a child's silly joke, her eyes lighting with a joy untainted by wealth. The way she greets everyone with the same warmth, whether they are a volunteer or a stranger. One afternoon, she finds him lingering outside the kitchen, watching the volunteers prepare meals. She raises an eyebrow. "Do you even know how to cook?" she teases. He smirks, and used to anyone daring to mock him. "I can order the best chefs in the city." "That's not the same," she says, handing him a knife. Chop. It is clumsy at first, his hands awkward with something so ordinary. The volunteers chuckle quietly, and for once, Khalid feels no urge to silence them. Instead, he glances at Amira, who is laughing openly at his uneven slices, and finds himself laughing too. The sound feels strange, unfamiliar, almost healing. Days later, they share coffee at a small street cafe. No reporters, no business associates, no flashing cameras. Just two people at a chipped wooden table. Amira speaks of her struggles, her hopes for her son, the way she wants him to grow up unafraid of who he is. Khalid listens, really listens, perhaps for the first time in years. And when she asks about his life, she does not ask about his companies or his money. She asks about him. What do you miss most, from before all this? The question catches him off guard. No one has ever cared enough to ask. He searches for an answer, and in that silence, something unspoken passes between them. A recognition. A spark. It is not a grand moment, not the kind splashed across magazines or whispered at galas. But it is real. And for Khalid, that makes it more powerful than anything he has ever known. Which is why, when the next gala arrives, he does something uncharacteristic. He asks Amira to come with him. The invitation is clumsy, almost hesitant. He doesn't frame it as an order, nor as a transaction. He simply says, "I want you there." For reasons she doesn't fully understand, Amira agrees. That night, as they step into the glittering ballroom, the difference between their worlds becomes impossible to ignore. Crystals shimmer above like frozen stars, violins hum in the background, and cameras flash as the elite glide across polished floors in gowns worth small fortunes. At Khalid's side, Amira wears a simple dress. Beautiful in its honesty, but plain compared to the sequined waves surrounding her. She feels the stares immediately, sharp, measuring, laced with disdain. Whispers curl through the air like smoke. Who is she? Not one of us. He must be playing some game. Khalid notices, but too late. He introduces her to powerful men, to jeweled women, to people who smile politely while their eyes strip her down. Amira nods, speaks when spoken to, but with every glance, every whisper, the weight of her difference presses heavier on her shoulders. She tries to hide it, but her hand trembles as she lifts a glass of water. Her smile falters when a woman in diamonds chuckles. Isn't it sweet, how Khalid takes charity to such personal levels? For the first time, Amira feels small. Not because of who she is, but because of the world Khalid has dragged her into. Across the room, Khalid sees it. The way her confidence flickers. The way her warmth begins to dim under the scrutiny of his circle. And for the first time, he realizes that his world, the one he built with iron and pride, is not a place where love can breathe. Amira excuses herself early, her head held high but her heart heavy. Khalid watches her walk away through the sea of glitter and glass, and something in him cracks. He has brought her into his world, and in doing so, he has almost lost her. The days that follow are strained. Amira avoids his calls, replying with short messages or polite excuses. Khalid feels the distance but refuses to let it widen. For once, pride takes a back seat to something he cannot yet name. One evening, he finds her at the community center after everyone else has gone. The lights are dim, her son already asleep in the corner. She moves quietly, stacking chairs, wiping tables, her shoulders heavy with unspoken frustration. "Khalid," she says flatly, not even turning. "Why are you here?" He steps closer. His voice is softer than she has ever heard it. "Because I needed to be." She sighs, shaking her head. "Your world, it isn't mine. I don't belong there." "You belong wherever you choose to stand," he replies. The words hang in the silence, charged, fragile. She looks at him then, really looks, past the suit, past the power, into the man beneath. And something shifts. Before either of them can retreat, the space between them collapses. Their lips meet in a kiss that is both hesitant and desperate, the clash of two lives colliding, the release of emotions they both tried to bury. For a moment, the world disappears. No money, no judgment, no past. Only two souls meeting in the quiet. But just as quickly as it begins, reality intrudes. The next morning, headlines explode across social media. Billionaire Khalid buys love at charity auction. Photos of the gala resurface, twisted into scandal. Commentators mock Amira, calling her a gold digger, a charity case paraded on his arm. Strangers dissect her life, her choices, her worth. Amira sees it all. Each word slices deeper. The kiss that had felt like truth now feels like a trap. To the world, she is not a woman. She is a transaction. And with that, the walls between them rise higher than ever before. Amira doesn't call. She doesn't answer. When Khalid appears at the community center, she slips away before he can speak. When he sends messages, she leaves them unread. The silence between them is no longer empty, it is heavy, deliberate, final. One evening, after days of chasing shadows, Khalid finds her alone in the courtyard behind the center. The night air is cool, the faint hum of the city echoing in the distance. She stands with her arms folded, gaze fixed on the ground. "Amira," he says, his voice low, almost pleading. She shakes her head before he can continue. "This isn't a fairy tale, Khalid. It's not coffee shops and laughter anymore. Do you know what it feels like to wake up and see your life torn apart by strangers? To have people you've never met call you names I can't even repeat? To know my son will grow up with those words attached to me? I can fix this," Khalid says quickly, instinctively. The same way he fixes every problem in his empire. But her eyes snap to his, filled with fire. "That's the problem. You think everything can be bought, silenced, or covered. But this, us, it's not a deal you can negotiate. It's my life. My dignity. My child's future." Her voice breaks, just for a moment, before hardening again. "We are from different worlds. And your world is already tearing mine apart." The words slice deeper than any business betrayal ever has. Khalid stands frozen, stripped of the armor he's always relied on. He wants to argue, to promise, to swear that this is different, but the truth is staring back at him in her trembling voice. Amira turns away, walking toward the faint light spilling from the center's doorway. She doesn't look back. And for the first time in his life, Khalid realizes that power means nothing when the one thing he wants cannot be held by force. The days that follow feel longer than years. Meetings blur into noise, contracts pass before his eyes unread. His empire moves forward, but Khalid drifts somewhere behind it, hollow and distracted. He retreats into silence, avoiding the parties, ignoring the calls, closing himself off in his penthouse of glass. At night, he stares across the skyline, remembering Amira's words. "Your world is already tearing mine apart." They echo louder than the voices of his advisors, louder than the applause of shareholders. He sees her walking away again and again, each step a reminder that wealth has never bought him the one thing he needs most: connection. One evening, unable to bear the emptiness, Khalid drives without destination. The city lights fade behind him, and the desert stretches endlessly before his headlights. Finally, he stops at a place he has not visited in years, a small, crumbling mosque on the edge of town, where his father once brought him as a boy. Inside, the walls are bare, the air heavy with the scent of dust and old prayers. Khalid sits on the floor, the silence pressing in around him. Memories rise, his father's voice teaching him honor, his mother's hand guiding his first prayer, the boy he once was before ambition consumed him. For the first time in decades, Khalid bows his head, not to make a deal, not to demand victory, but to face himself. And in that stillness, a realization takes root: he has built towers that touch the sky, but they are empty inside. He has conquered everything, except the truth of his own heart. When he leaves the mosque, the desert wind is cool against his face. He feels no sudden answers, no miraculous clarity, only a conviction that the life he has been living cannot continue. Something must change. And this time it is not for profit, not for pride, but for love. The next morning, Khalid returns to his empire with a different fire in his eyes. For years, he has been the unshakable figure at the head of the table, the man no one dared to challenge. But today, as the board gathers in a room lined with polished mahogany and glass, they sense something unfamiliar, defiance, not against rivals, but against his own world. He listens as his executives outline a lucrative expansion, a project that will bulldoze a struggling neighborhood to make way for luxury towers. The numbers are dazzling, the profits obscene. Any other day, Khalid would have signed without hesitation. Instead, he closes the folder and pushes it aside. No, he says firmly. Confusion flickers across the room. One board member dares to press, reminding him of the billions at stake, the reputation of their empire. Khalid's gaze hardens. An empire that destroys lives is already bankrupt, he replies. The silence that follows is suffocating. Some scoff. Some argue. One even threatens resignation. But Khalid does not bend. For the first time in years, he chooses conscience over profit, humanity over dominance. And it does not end there. In the days that follow, he begins dismantling the pillars of corruption he once tolerated. The toxic advisor who whispered poison in his ear is dismissed. A predatory deal is cancelled, even at the cost of millions. Resources once hoarded for prestige projects are redirected quietly, discreetly, towards schools, housing, and community programs. Each choice chips away at the fortress he built, and each one brings him closer to the man he was meant to be. It is not easy. He faces outrage, betrayal, threats. But for once, Khalid does not fear loss. For once, he understands that power is not in the walls he built high above the people, but in the courage to stand among them. And beneath every decision, every sacrifice, lies a single truth he can no longer deny: he is not doing this for the empire, or the headlines, or even his legacy. He is doing this for her. And so, after weeks of silence, Khalid returns not to the boardroom, not to his penthouse, but to the modest streets where Amira lives. This time, he brings nothing with him: no bodyguards, no chauffeur, no glittering gifts. Only himself. He finds her outside the community center, sweeping the worn stone steps as the afternoon sun spills across the street. She notices him, pauses, and her face tightens. She expects excuses, apologies, maybe another offer of money. What she does not expect is his hands, roughened by work, carrying lumber. Without a word, Khalid walks past her and sets the wood down by the crumbling wall at the edge of the playground. Then he rolls up his sleeves. "Your roof leaks when it rains," he says simply. "Let's fix it." At first, she doesn't believe him. But when he climbs the ladder himself, hammer in hand, the truth is undeniable. The man who once signed deals worth nations is now repairing a shelter with his own hands. Children gather to watch, giggling as he struggles at first, nails bent, hands blistered. Volunteers whisper in astonishment. And Amira? She watches in silence, her heart battling between suspicion and something softer. The days that follow transform into something neither of them expected. Khalid is there each morning, hauling bricks, painting walls, helping serve food. He listens to the stories of mothers, sits with children as they do their homework, and even learns to play street football badly but earnestly. His suits are replaced by rolled-up shirts and dust-stained trousers. For once, he is not Khalid the billionaire. He is simply Khalid, a man who chooses to show up, to stay, to care. And though he never speaks of love, never tries to persuade with words, his presence says everything Amira needs to hear. That this time it is not money. It is not pity. It is not power. It is humility. It is change. It is love proven by sacrifice. Weeks pass, and the community center stands transformed. The roof no longer leaks. Fresh paint brightens its walls. Children race across the playground, their laughter carrying into the street. And every nail, every brushstroke, every moment of labor bears Khalid's fingerprint. One evening, as the sun sinks low over Dubai, the community gathers for the center's reopening. There is no red carpet, no press. Just neighbors, families, children holding balloons. Amira stands at the front, thanking the volunteers, her voice warm with pride. Khalid lingers at the edge of the crowd, silent, content to watch. But when she finishes speaking, the children begin to chant his name. Slowly, they tug him forward. Reluctantly, almost shyly, Khalid steps beside her. For once, he looks not like a man accustomed to power, but like a man humbled by it. Amira turns to him, her eyes searching. "Why did you do this?" she asks softly, so only he can hear. He holds her gaze, his voice steady but stripped bare. "Because I wanted to build something real. Not towers. Not profits. Something that mattered. And because," he hesitates, breath catching, "because I want to build it with you." The crowd around them fades, the world falling silent as though holding its breath. Khalid does not kneel with diamonds, nor present contracts signed in gold. Instead, he extends his hand, empty, but honest. "Amira, will you give me the chance to build a life with you? Not as a billionaire. Not as a savior. Just as a man who loves you." Her son rushes forward then, clutching Khalid's other hand. His innocent voice breaks the silence, "Mama, please say yes." Amira's eyes brim with tears. For weeks she has watched his actions, testing them against his words. Tonight, there is no doubt left. She places her hand in his. "Yes," she whispers. The crowd erupts in cheers, children clap, and for the first time, Khalid's heart feels richer than his fortune.